Do you notice anything wrong in this code? So we don't want to execute this if block if the value of this boolean is either false or null. Thus this condition works perfectly. If you run the code now, this print statement gets executed only once, and for this first call where we are passing true. So this works, but Dart's documentation recommend using this operator for such conditions instead of this approach. So if you use this operator, first the expression on the left of this operator is evaluated. If it is not null, then it is used, but if it is null, then the value of the expression on its right is used. So here we want to execute this if block if the boolean is true. We don't want to execute this if block if it is false, and if it is null, we don't want to execute this block. So if it is null, then the expression on the right of this operator will be used, right? So here we are going to add false. Now if you run the code again, it will behave exactly the same way to the previous approach. Dart recommends using this approach instead of that one. Now there are three reasons for this recommendation. The first reason is that this operator makes you aware of the possible involvement of null. So in Dart, this operator is related to null. So whenever you see this, you know that somewhere null is involved. The second reason is that in this approach, if the value which is being passed to this function is never going to be null, then this looks redundant. But again, the same code will make sense if the value being passed is nullable. So this is a little confusing in sometimes. Now the third reason is very interesting. So like the video, subscribe to the channel and take a close look at this condition. If this boolean is true, we are going to execute this block. If this is false, we are not going to execute this block. And if it is null, then again we don't want to execute this block. If this were a non-nullable boolean, then we could have used the boolean itself as the condition. As this is a condition, it has to be boolean, right? It has to be either true or false. So if it is null, then we don't want to execute this block. So basically we have to convert null to false, and we are doing that using this operator here. And this is clear in this approach when we use this operator. So whenever this is null, we are using false. So we are converting null to false. And we are doing the same thing in this approach too. But this is not as clear as this approach. Take a moment, think about it. You will find that it is a little difficult to understand the concept behind it by taking a look at this condition. We simply use this because this works, we know it. But the concept behind this is a little easier to understand in this approach.